All right, so let's look at number 1. And they want to know what HO is. And so remember, HO is the status quo. It's what you assume is going on for everybody, all right? And so the answer to all of these here is A. Okay, the statement that there is no effect, there is no difference. Okay, let's look here at B. Okay, what they want to do is they want to know what a type 1 error is. So let's go right down our HO. When we're talking the water is fine, right? We assume that water is fine. There is no difference. And HA, water is not fine. Water is unsafe. Okay, so what is an type 1 error? Type 1 error is that HO is true, but they decide that the park is not safe. So it's got to be one of these closing the parks here. And so the answer is D, closing the park when the lead levels are within allowable distance. Okay? Let's go to 3. After the political ad campaign, pollsters checked the governor's negatives, the percent of state residents who expressed disapproval of job performance. They test the hypothesis that the ads produce no charge against the alternative that the negatives are below 30%. Okay, so HO, I would guess, is that P is equal to 0.3, and HA is that P is less than 0.3. Now, we got a P value of 0.22. 0.22 is big. Our biggest alpha is going to be 0.1 because that's a 90% confidence interval. Our smallest alpha is going to be 0.01 because that's a 99% confidence interval. All right, so if our biggest alpha is 0.1, do you see no matter what alpha is, 0.22 is greater than that. So because it's greater than alpha, we will fail to reject. So what we're going to do, we're going to stay with 0.3, okay? Okay, so let's remember what the p-value is. The p-value is the probability. Okay, so given that HO is true, what's the probability that HA can happen? All right, and do you see that D is the only conditional one here? So we're going to go with D. Okay, so let's go with number 4, and they're talking about scanners. And they decided to go with the new scanner. All right, so they're going to go with the new scanner. That means they reject HO. Now, if they reject HO, that means that the p-value is between 0 and HO. It means 0 and alpha. Okay, so now they say, what if it's going to be at 0.10? All right, so here is 0.10. Would we still do the same thing? Do you see that this area here is still less than alpha? So the answer is C. Yes, they would. All right, so this one, 5, is about power. And they are getting more and more items that are defective. And we had a homework problem that was kind of along this line. Remember, we talked about that if the mistake happens more and more, or it gets bigger and bigger, it's easier to see that something is wrong, correct? And so the answer is, if it gets bigger and bigger, the answer is yes, this is improved power, and the answer is C. Okay, the big thing here is testing to proportions. Now, this right here is only when we're doing confidence intervals. Remember that we pool when we're testing. And I did not want to go there with you guys, all right? So the pooling is right here. So the answer is C. Okay, the key one is here is on-time delivery for 98%. So we want our items to be delivered on time 98%. And they want to determine that these parts were delivered on time. So do you agree with me, but they would want them delivered 98% of the time, 99% of the time, or 100% of the time? Those are the only three choices. They don't want to go to the 97. So we always start off with HO to be an equal, so these can't be it. And do you see how E is greater than? So the answer is E. Okay, let's go to here to number 8. We talk about this and we want to verify. Verify. We don't want to see if that new sample is the new one. We want to verify. And when we do that, that's a confidence interval. So all of these dies are out. It's a 1 portion, so the answer is D. All right, so for number 9, do you see that I wrote down the HO and AJ? That always helps me out. Now you have to be careful when you read these. All right, so especially when there's 4 of them here, because remember when we did the Punnam squares, 2 of them were okay. So if you can cross out the ones where there is no conflict. Okay, so like E here, it says the error of rejecting the claim. So rejecting the claim is going to HA where it's less than 0.05 when it's really less than 0.05. You see how that's not even a conflict. All right, so I would go to, I've had to read these very carefully. Anyway, the answer is D here. Accepting the HO is false, but they go with HO. Okay, so for number 10, you don't have to write down what the confidence interval is. I only did that because I'm sure some of you guys have forgotten all about this. Okay, it was a while back ago, all right? And so I just wrote it down to help you memorize what's going on. So anyway, but I get the answer is C. So this is purely a calculator problem.